My cursor hovered over the reject button at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Just hovered there. And in those 47 seconds, I counted them, actually 3 text notifications buzzed on my Apple Watch. Mom, Rebecca, Tara, all asking for something, all assuming I'd say yes like I always did. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was about to tell my niece, Tara, that I wouldn't be sponsoring her internship. I wouldn't be opening doors. I wouldn't be useful anymore. And the calmness I felt, the absolute absence of panic or guilt, told me something had fundamentally shifted inside me. The email was short, professional, final. Hi, Tara. Thank you for your internship request. After careful consideration, I've decided not to move forward at this time. I recommend you pursue opportunities outside the family sphere. Best of luck with your career. Eli. But here's what nobody understood. This email wasn't the problem. This email was the solution. Because for 23 years, I'd been the financial backbone of this family. I owned the lake house outright, a $340,000 property. That I maintained alone, paid taxes on, alone, renovated alone. I'd transferred over $4,000 to family members in dribs and drabs over 2 decades, college tuition gaps, medical bills, car down payments, anonymous grants that came through an LLC, so nobody would know it was me, so nobody would have to feel the weight of their gratitude. I was financially independent, wealthy actually, and yet they treated me like I was the burden, like I was the one they had to tolerate at the table. I clicked send. The email disappeared into Tara's inbox at 11:48 p.m., and as I sat there in my quiet home with my lake house waiting for me an hour away, I realized they had no idea what was about to happen. The partition deed for the lake house was already filed. The financial support had already stopped. Everything was already in motion. And in 3 days, when they showed up at that lake house for Memorial Day weekend, they were going to find out that the person they'd been taking from for 2 decades had finally become unavailable. They never saw it coming. Because they never saw me at all. I wasn't always invisible. Or maybe I was. I just didn't notice it yet. I'm 47 now. My sister Rebecca is 42. My niece Tara is 21. I'm the oldest by 5 years, which meant something specific in our family. I was useful. By the time I was 25 years old, I was the one Mom called when the roof leaked. I was the one who understood finances, who could fix computers, who had a steady job in IT consulting. Rebecca. She was the charming one, good at relationships, good at making people feel special. She made $65,000 a year, which was respectable, but she always seemed to need a little help. And Mom. After Dad left when I was 16, Mom had Social Security of about $28,000 a year, and a lot of anxiety about money. So it was natural, I guess. I was the backbone. I never said yes. I just never said no. That's how it started. The lake house came in 2009. I'd saved aggressively for years, no vacations, no relationships that lasted, no distractions, just work and saving. I bought a $300,000 property on the water paid cash. Got the deed in my name alone. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. My escape from the city, the noise, the constant demands. But within a year, Mom had a key. Within 2 years, Rebecca knew the Wi-Fi password without asking. Within 5 years, the lake house wasn't mine anymore. It was just available. It was the place where family happened, where celebrations occurred, where I was expected to show up and not complain. The maintenance started adding up. $8,200 for dock repairs in 2019, $12,000 for a roof replacement in $18,000 a year, like clockwork for property taxes and insurance. I kept the receipts in a folder on my laptop. Everything filed, dated, documented. I don't know why I was so meticulous, maybe because somewhere deep down I knew this would matter someday. And then there were the family photos. I know this sounds petty, but I started counting. Over 300 photos from family events in the last 5 years. Mom had them all organized on her phone. I appeared in 12 of them. 12, do you know what that is? That's 4%. At Tara's 18th birthday party, 63 guests. 3 different photographers. I was cropped out of every single photo. Rebecca's promotion dinner. The one I paid for, I sat at a side table, ate alone, and when the group photos came out, I was in one frame, in the background, out of focus. My sister got a text from one of Mom's book club friends a few months later. The friend asked Rebecca, "Who's Eli?" And Rebecca answered, "Oh, just my brother. He works in tech. Not my successful brother. Not my brother who pays for things." Just a passing mention like I was a footnote in her life story. But the money, that's where I finally started keeping real track. Mom's medical bills from 2015 to 2018 came to $34,000. I paid half because it felt like the right thing to do. Rebecca's college tuition had a gap $18,000 that her loans didn't cover. I filled it. Tara's first car. She needed $8,000 for a down payment. "It'll help her get to college," Mom said. So I sent it. And then there were the anonymous grants. I set up an LLC, a legal entity that nobody could trace back to me, and I started sending regular deposits to family members through it. Mom got $1 and $200 a month. Rebecca got smaller amounts for unexpected expenses. Uncle Jim, my mom's brother, got help with a medical bill. I kept the system anonymous because I thought it would spare them the burden of gratitude. I thought it would let them feel independent. What I didn't realize was that it just made me invisible in a different way. I wasn't helping because they appreciated me. I was helping because I was the only one who could, and nobody needed to know about it. Over 20 years, the numbers added up. $407,000. Maybe more. I stopped counting after a while. But here's what mattered. I had documentation for all of it. Bank transfers with dates, email receipts, invoices for the lake house repairs, photos of family events where I wasn't included, text messages where people asked me for money without saying hello first. And I kept it all organized in a folder on my laptop, like I was building a case against my own family. I didn't know why I was doing it. I just knew somehow that someday I would need it. And that day was coming. The text came in at 2:47 on a Friday morning. I was asleep. Tara didn't care. "Uncle E. Mom says you have connections in tech. Can you get me in mail? Somewhere I graduate next month and I need experience on my resume." That was it. No, "How are you?" No, "I hope I'm not waking you up at 2:47 in the morning." No, "I've been following your career and I'm interested in what you do." Just a request, casual and clean like she was ordering delivery. I stared at the message for a long time, and then I did something I'd never done before. I didn't say yes. I waited 3 days before I replied. 3 days of thinking about every family dinner where nobody asked me a single question about my work. 3 days of remembering Rebecca's promotion dinner where I paid for everything and nobody mentioned it. 3 days of facing the fact that my niece at 21 years old didn't know the first thing about what I actually did. So I texted back, "Tara, before we talk about this, I have some questions. What do you know about what I do? Have you ever asked me about my work? What do you think my job involves?" I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear for an hour. Finally, she answered, I don't know. Something computery. You're always busy at your laptop." That was all she had. 21 years old, and she had no idea that I ran a consulting firm with 12 employees. No idea that I'd built it from the ground up from nothing, that I'd spent years developing it into something real. To her, I was just the uncle who sometimes seemed busy. And in that moment, something shifted in me. I stopped trying to be useful to them. I started protecting myself. I called my mom that Sunday afternoon. She picked up on the second ring like she was waiting for me. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice already warm with the assumption that I was calling to help with something. "I was thinking," I said, "we should all get together for Memorial Day weekend. At the lake house. Family time. What do you think?" There was a pause, just a half second, and then she was excited. "Oh, that's perfect. Tara's graduation party is that week. Can we celebrate at your place? That would be so special." I could hear the plans already forming in her mind. The party, the free venue, the celebration that would revolve around Tara, while everyone took for granted that I would provide it. "Sure," I said, keeping my voice level. "That's actually what I want to talk about." She missed it completely. "Wonderful. I'll tell Rebecca to bring food. We'll make it special." She hung up before I could say anything else. And as I stood there in my quiet living room with the lake house waiting an hour away, I realized I'd just set a date. I'd chosen a location. I'd put all of them in a room together on my property during a weekend where I controlled every variable. For the first time in 23 years, they wouldn't know what was coming. I set the date. I set the location. For the last time, they wouldn't even know. In the 2 weeks before Memorial Day, I became obsessive. I created a folder on my laptop called Family Financial Records and password protected it. Then I started gathering everything. I took screenshots of every text message from Mom Rebecca and Tara asking for money or favors. I saved emails where I'd responded with dates and amounts. I pulled bank statements showing transfers to Mom's account marked medical support. I found every credit card receipt for lake house expenses itemized and documented. I printed out photos from family events highlighting the ones where I'd been cropped out or relegated to the background. I made a calendar comparing events I'd been invited to versus events I'd simply shown up to. I pulled the deed to the lake house, proving sole ownership. I even retrieved the original contracts for the anonymous LLC I'd set up years ago. Every document was a brick. Every brick was part of a wall I was about to build. The difference between an accusation and proof is documentation. I had proof of everything. 20 years of proof, all indexed and dated. One evening around sunset, I drove out to the lake house alone. I sat on the dock with a beer. No phone, no work emails, just the water and the sky turning orange. And I let myself feel it all at once. I thought about Tara's childhood, how I'd bought her books about science and technology books I thought might spark something in her. She'd never mentioned them. I thought about Rebecca's college graduation, the one day I'd taken off work, the one day I'd sat in that auditorium and clapped for my sister. When she'd posted the photos online later, I'd scrolled through every single one. I wasn't in any of them. Not the ceremony, not the family photos, not the celebration dinner. I thought about Mom's birthday parties, how I'd called the florist every year and sent arrangements, expensive ones. But I'd never been invited to the party itself. I'd just been asked to contribute. And sitting there in the fading light, I finally understood something that had taken me 23 years to see. I didn't have a family. I had a job. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me sad. And then it made me calm. Because once you understand that the thing you've been trying to fix was never broken, it was just designed that way, you stop trying. You start protecting yourself instead. I spent the next week writing my speech. I sat at my laptop and drafted it 3 different ways. The first version was emotional. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being used. I'm tired of being the one nobody sees. I deleted it. Too weak. The second version was angry. You've all treated me like an A-team. You've taken everything from me and given back nothing but silence. I deleted that too. Too accusatory, too easy to dismiss. But the third version felt right. I've spent more than 20 years providing financial and emotional support to this family without ever being treated as a full member of it. That ends today. And I have documentation to prove every word I'm about to say. I read it out loud. I refined it. I practiced it 50 times in my empty house, standing in my living room, like I was giving a presentation to the board. And somewhere around the 50th time, the nervousness disappeared. My voice stopped shaking. I wasn't asking permission anymore. I was stating facts. As the weekend approached, the texts kept coming. May 20th, Mom. Honey, can you get some nice wine for the weekend? You know what we like? May 22nd. Rebecca. Hey, can you pick me up from the train station Friday? My car's in the shop. May 23rd. Tara. Uncle Lee. Can I bring a friend? She's fun. You'll like her. Each request casual, each one assuming I'd say yes. Each one a perfect example of the pattern I was about to break. I responded to all of them. Sure. See you Friday. I said it like nothing had changed. I said it like I was the same Eli they'd always known, the one who showed up, who paid, who didn't ask for acknowledgement. They had no idea. They were walking into their own life and had no idea that everything was about to change. I'd set the trap. Now, I just had to wait for them to arrive. Friday evening at 6:47 p.m., I pulled into the lake house driveway and felt something shift in my chest. My family was already here. Mom's car was parked by the front door, and when I walked in, she was already in the kitchen rearranging things, like she owned the place. Rebecca pulled up 10 minutes later, threw her arms around me and said, "Thanks for the ride, bro. You're a lifesaver." Like it was nothing, like I wasn't doing anything special. Tara and her friend were already upstairs in the guest bedrooms without asking first. Mom called out from the kitchen, "Eli, honey, can you help me with the grill? You know how to fix it." It wasn't a question. It was an expectation. Dinner was at 7. Nobody mentioned the conversation I'd tried to hint at on the phone. Nobody seemed to notice that anything was different. The lake house was full of life and noise, and the assumption that everything would go on exactly as it always had. They acted like the lake house was theirs. Maybe I'd let them believe that too long. Dinner lasted 90 minutes. I sat at the head of my own table, and I kept count. Mom talked about her book club, her health, her worries. Rebecca vented about her boss, her stress, her drama. Tara talked about her graduation plans, her excitement, her future. And me, I tried to mention a project at work. Rebecca interrupted me before I finished the first sentence. I tried again 10 minutes later. This time, nobody responded. By the end of the meal, I'd made 4 statements. 2 of them were deflected. 2 of them were ignored completely. The requests were constant. "Pass the salt. Can you open this wine? The opener's stuck. Hey, can you check on the AC? It's making that weird noise again." I was a utility, a tool, something to use when needed and forget about when not. When I offered to help clear the table and do the dishes, Mom said, "Oh, don't worry. Tara and I will do it." Translation: "You're not needed for this, but we'll need you for something else soon." I sat at my own table in my own house and was completely invisible. Saturday morning came early. Around 10 o'clock, I was in the kitchen making coffee when I decided to try again. I said it quietly. "I wanted to talk about some things this weekend. About the lake house, about... Mom interrupted me before I could finish. Oh, honey, everything's fine. You worry too much. Let's just enjoy the weekend, okay? She didn't even look up from the eggs she was cooking. Rebecca, scrolling through her phone, added, Yeah, you're so serious sometimes. Can't we just have fun for once? And then just loud enough for me to hear? Tara said to her friend who was sitting at the kitchen table, My uncle's like the most intense person in our family. They were dismissing me, not addressing me, dismissing the idea that I had something valid to say. They shut me down before I could even start. And in that moment, something broke inside me, not in a painful way, but in a clarifying way. That was the moment I stopped being patient. I walked out to my truck and called my lawyer. He picked up on the first ring. Eli. Everything okay? I said, Yeah. I need you to start the partition process on the lake house. I want it divided, and I need you to draft a rejection letter for my niece's internship request. Make it professional. Make it final. There was a pause, a long one. Then he said, Eli, that's going to blow up. I looked out at the lake from where I was standing at the end of the dock, watching the water reflect the house behind me. I know, I said. I'm ready. We talked for another few minutes about timelines and paperwork. He told me he'd have the partition deed ready to file by Monday. He said he'd draft the rejection email and have it ready for my signature. Before we hung up, he said something I'll never forget. I advised caution, Eli, but you're clear about this. I can see it. And when I hung up the phone Saturday, May 25th, 15 p.m., standing on that dock, with the sun reflecting off the water, I felt something I hadn't felt in 23 years. Lightness. Complete, absolute lightness. Like I'd been holding my breath underwater and had finally surfaced. The nervousness was gone. The doubt was gone. The hesitation was gone. I was no longer asking permission. I was no longer seeking validation. I was simply executing a plan. And nothing, not guilt, not family pressure, not the weight of obligation, was going to stop me now. Sunday morning, 10:00 a.m. sharp. I called everyone into the living room. No coffee, no breakfast, no distractions. Just the four of us, Mom, Rebecca, Tara, and me. I kept my voice steady as I said, I need everyone to listen. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. No interruptions until I'm done. Okay. Mom's face went pale. Eli, what's wrong? You're scaring us. Rebecca immediately jumped to catastrophe. Oh my God, are you sick or something? Tara just looked confused. Nobody expected what was actually coming. I opened my laptop. The spreadsheet was already there, rows and columns of dates and amounts, 12 years of documentation organized and color-coded. For the first time in our entire family history, I commanded the room, and they actually sat down and listened. Over the past 20 years, I said, clicking through the spreadsheet, I've provided the following financial support to this family. Mom's medical bills from 2015 to 2018, $34,000. You asked me to help with that. I did. Rebecca's college tuition gap from 2001 to 2005, $18,000. I filled that. Tara's car down payment in 2019, $8,000. Lake house maintenance, property taxes, and insurance, $18,000 per year times 12 years equals $2,000. That doesn't include the major renovations. Dock repair in 2019, $8,200. Roof replacement in 2021, $12,000, and miscellaneous expenses over the years. Groceries, I bought bills, I covered favors. I did another $80,000 or more. When you add it all together, the total is $407,200. That's $23,000 per year, every single year, for 2 decades. I have receipts for every dollar of it." I let that number sit in the room for a moment. Mom started to interrupt. "Eli, we were never asking for a gift. We were family." I looked at her calmly and said, "Exactly. But a family should know that their son is sacrificing. You didn't even know. That's not family. That's just using someone who doesn't know he's being used." $407,000. All documented. All real. Then I pulled up the photos. "I spent some time looking through Mom's phone album," I said. I showed them one photo after another from family events over the past 5 years. There are over 300 photos in here. Parties, dinners, celebrations. I appear in 12 of them. 12. That's 4%. Do you understand what that percentage means? It means I was invisible, not metaphorically, literally excluded from visual family records. I showed them a text from Rebecca. "Can you cover the caterer? But please don't mention you paid for it. It might seem like you're bragging," I said. "This is interesting. You asked me to pay for something, but you asked me to keep it quiet about it. Why would that be?" "Because keeping it quiet meant keeping me invisible. I was useful, but I wasn't supposed to be visible." I showed them Tara's original text. "Uncle E, can you get me in somewhere? No. How are you? No. I'm interested in your work. Just a request from someone who didn't know the first thing about me." And finally, I showed them a group chat from Mom's book club. One of her friends had asked, "Who's Eli?" And Mom had responded, "Oh, just my son. He works in tech." Not my successful son. Not my son who's been helping with your bills. Just a passing mention. Like I was a footnote. Rebecca's face went red when she recognized her own words. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," she said quietly. I looked at her and said, "But you did mean it exactly like that. I'm useful when you need something, invisible when you don't. That's the pattern. I was a ghost in my own family, and they finally saw the proof." "Here's what I've decided," I continued. My voice was steady. "I've retained a lawyer to partition the lake house. You'll each receive your portion of its value, or you can buy me out. That property is no longer family property. It's an asset, and it's being handled as a legal transaction." Mom's face went white. Rebecca opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "I'm also ending all anonymous financial support, effective immediately," I said. "Going forward, if you need money, you ask me directly, in writing, and I decide whether to help. There's no more blank check, no more mystery grants, just direct communication and my assessment." Tara was staring at her hands. "And Tara," I said, "I'm rejecting your internship request. It's final. I recommend you pursue opportunities outside the family. That will be healthier for both of us." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The kind that fills a room when people realize they've lost something they didn't know they depended on. One click sent, and Tara's easy path closed forever. Mom tried first. "Eli, this is so unlike you. You're not thinking clearly. Is this about the money? Because we can figure this out. We can make it work." I didn't argue. I just said, "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." Rebecca's voice got tight. "You're throwing this in our faces after everything we've been through together. This isn't who you are." Again, calmly, "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference," Tara, her voice shaking, said. "This is so unfair. You're punishing me for what my mom did. That's not right." And I said, "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." I said it 3 times because they needed to hear it. The pattern wasn't changing. I was changing. That afternoon, I changed my phone settings. I blocked 2 of their numbers. I set up email filters so messages from certain addresses went directly to a folder I wouldn't have to see. They kept pushing. Texts kept coming. Emails kept coming. But I didn't move. I didn't waver. Silence became my superpower. My lawyer filed the partition deed on May 27th. By May 28th, the formal offer letters were in the mail. The lake house, which had been treated as family property for so long, was now being handled as a legal asset. The fair market value came back at $3,000. I offered Mom and Rebecca each $80,000 to buy out their shares. They had 30 days to decide accept the offer or watch the house go on the market, where I would outbid anyone else and keep it for myself. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a mathematical certainty with a deadline. Tara didn't get anything. She was never on the deed. The lake house wasn't theirs anymore. It was just mine again. The anonymous grants ended the same way. June 1st rolled around, and Mom called me. Her voice had that edge of panic. "Eli, did you know the account just stopped depositing? It says the grant program is suspended." I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. I just said, "Yes, I suspended it. If you need financial help, you can ask me directly. That's all it is now." She tried. "But how am I supposed to?" And I cut her off gently. "You have Social Security. You have Rebecca. You have options. But you don't have me as a blank check anymore." That was it. The $1,200 a month that had been quietly hitting her account for years. Gone. The emergency fund I'd built up, $50,000 sitting in that LLC account as a safety net. Inaccessible. They'd grown accustomed to money appearing out of nowhere. Now they had to figure out how to live without it. The invisible money stopped flowing. They had to face reality now. On June 1st at 9:00 a.m., I sent an email to Tara. Subject line, "Re-internship request, status update." The content was brief and professional. "Hi Tara, thank you for your internship request. After careful consideration, I've decided not to move forward at this time. I recommend you pursue opportunities outside the family sphere to develop professional independence and experience. Best of luck with your career. Eli." I CC'd the HR director and our company records. It wasn't cruel. It was just documented. Tara called Mom. Mom called me. I didn't answer. The message was clear, but they didn't stop. Over the next 24 hours, 47 text messages came through from various family members. Mom. "Eli, why are you punishing Tara? This isn't her fault." Rebecca. "You're going to regret this. You know that, right?" Uncle Jim. Mom's brother reached out with a different angle. "Family doesn't do this to each other, Eli. I'm disappointed in you." And to each one, I gave the same response. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm setting boundaries. If you can't respect that, I'm not available to talk." Then I blocked Mom's number. I blocked Rebecca's number. I set up email filters so their messages went to a folder I didn't have to see. They could keep pushing. They could keep guilt-tripping. They could keep trying to make me feel like I was the villain. But I didn't move. I didn't waver. I didn't respond. Silence became my superpower. The rumors started immediately. Mom told her sisters that I was cutting the family off and that I'd changed and was no longer the man we raised. Rebecca told her friends that I was refusing to help anymore and being selfish. The story twisted as it moved through the extended family. Cousins texted asking what had happened. Aunts speculated. The family group chat filled up with confused messages. One cousin, "What happened with Eli? Is he okay?" One aunt, "Nobody knows. He just decided to be difficult." I watched it all unfold. I read every message. and I didn't respond to a single one. They were telling their version of the story to anyone who would listen. Nobody was hearing mine yet. But Uncle Jim did. Uncle Jim was my mom's brother, 71 years old, the kind of man who'd always treated me with genuine respect. On June 15th at 7:30 p.m. he called me. "Eli," he said, "your mom says you're cutting the family off, but I want to hear it from you. What actually happened?" I took a breath, and for the first time since the lake house weekend, I told someone everything. I told him about the exclusion, the money, the photos, the documentation, the realization that I'd been used. He listened without interrupting. He asked real questions. He didn't judge. When I finished, there was a pause. Then he said, "Eli, I didn't know it was this bad. I should have known. I'm sorry." He asked, "Do you have proof?" I said, "Yeah. 20 years of proof." He was quiet for a moment. Then you're not wrong, Eli. You're not even harsh. You're just done. And that's fair." He promised me I'm going to tell them the real story. Uncle Jim was the first to understand I wasn't the villain. I was just leaving. Mid-June. Jim called a family meeting at Mom's house. He walked in with printouts. He sat everyone down, and he didn't mince words. "I talked to Eli," he said. "I've reviewed his evidence. It all checks out. Every single bit of it. Mom, you've been taking money from your son for over 20 years while pretending he doesn't exist. That ends now." Mom tried, "But Jim?" He cut her off. "No buts, Diane. Eli's right. He's been invisible. He's been used. He's done. And we need to respect that." Rebecca started to protest. "He's being dramatic." Jim looked at her and said, "Rebecca, he showed me bank statements. He showed me the deed to the lake house. He showed me photos where you've cropped him out of family pictures. It's not dramatic. It's systematic." Tara didn't say anything. She just sat there, knowing exactly how guilty she was of the Uncle E get me in somewhere dynamic. Then Jim did something powerful. He laid out the printouts on the table. $407,000, he said, reading from the spreadsheet. "That's what Eli has given to this family over 20 years. That's 20 yuan per year, every single year, to a family that doesn't even acknowledge his existence." The room went absolutely silent. And in that silence, something shifted. Mom's eyes filled with tears, not tears of remorse, but tears of realization. The money was really gone. The safety net she'd taken for granted no longer existed. Rebecca stared at the bank statements, her face going pale. She was doing the math in her head, probably realizing exactly how much she'd depended on him without ever saying thank you. Tara said very quietly, "I didn't know." Jim nodded and said, "Now you do." Later, Jim told me of what happened after he left. "Your mom cried for about 10 minutes, he said. "Rebecca looked like she was going to be sick. Tara actually apologized to me, not to you, but she apologized. That surprised me. But there was no real moment of reconciliation. No amends were made. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was just about truth, finally visible. And then they understood I'd never been the problem. I'd been the solution. I was the only thing holding their lives together, and when I removed myself, everything fell apart." A few days later, Jim called me again. "I think they're ready to hear from you," he said. So I wrote something. I didn't write it in anger. I didn't write it in pain. I wrote it calmly and clearly, and I asked Jim to read it to them. "I'm not angry. I'm not cruel. I'm just done. The lake house partition is moving forward. The financial support is over. If you want a relationship with me, it will be based on respect, not on what you need from me. That's my boundary. I'm at peace with it. I hope you can be too." Jim read those words to my family, and when he finished, there was nothing left to say. Take the hint. I'm just done. And I meant it. 6 months passed. December rolled around, and for the first time in 23 years, I spent Thanksgiving completely alone. Intentionally alone. I cooked a small turkey breast for myself. I poured a drink. I read a book I'd been meaning to read. I slept past 8 in the morning without a single thought of guilt. I checked my phone that morning and saw no missed calls from Mom. No emergency texts from Rebecca. No casual demands from Tara asking me to do something, be somewhere, provide something. The silence wasn't painful anymore. It was exactly what I needed. For the first time in 20 years, I wasn't waiting for the next request. The lake house felt different now. In early December, I hired a contractor to renovate the guest room, not for family visits. For me, I wanted a reading space with big windows overlooking the water. I took down all the old photos, the ones where I'd been cropped out, the ones where I was just a background blur. I replaced them with new ones, some of my travels, some I'd taken at sunrise from the dock, some just landscapes that made me happy. I invited a friend from work up for a weekend. We cooked together, talked for hours, laughed at stupid things. We sat on the dock at sunset and just existed in comfortable silence. The lake house finally felt like home again. Just mine. But I wasn't naive about what had happened to them. Mom and Rebecca had accepted the $85,000 buyout I offered them. By March, the money was mostly gone. Bills they'd been ignoring. Lifestyle expenses they'd gotten used to. Rebecca was stressed about money now, in a way she'd never been before. Mom was learning to live on her Social Security and the occasional help Rebecca could provide. The anonymous grants had stayed suspended. Tara hadn't gotten an internship anywhere that summer. No uncle to help. No easy path. Just the reality of having to build her own way. There was no tragedy, no disaster. Just the natural consequence of losing $400,000 in annual support. In November, Mom called. Actually, she called through Jim. First, Jim was still the bridge between us, the one person who understood both sides. "Your mom wants to talk to you," he said. "Is that okay?" I said yes. Mom called. Her voice was different, quieter, less assumptive. "I miss you," she said. And I meant it when I said, "I miss you too." But then she started down the familiar path. "Can we figure this out? Can we go back to—" I stopped her gently. "I'm open to talking, but not about money, and not about going back to how things were." The door wasn't slammed permanently, but the terms were clear, and they were mine. Here's what I learned I'm not going to say. I'm happy they're struggling. I'm not. But I'm also not going to apologize for protecting myself. Being invisible for 20 years taught me something fundamental. Love without respect is just using someone. And I won't do that anymore. Not to them, and definitely not to myself. My lake house is peaceful now. My money is mine. My time is mine. And that's not betrayal. That's self-respect. If they ever want to know the real me, the one who isn't a resource, the one who has boundaries, the one who says no, I'm here. But I'm not going to pay for that privilege anymore. Take the hint. I'm just done. And I'm finally free. On a cold December evening, I sat on the dock watching the sun disappear over the water. The wind was sharp. The lake was calm. My phone buzzed. A text from Jim. "Happy holidays, nephew. I'm proud of you." I smiled and texted back. "Thanks, Uncle. That means a lot. Happy holidays to you too." And I sat there in the quiet, in the peace, in the life I'd chosen. Not the life my family had chosen for me. Not the life of invisible servitude. but my life. Finally, completely undeniably mine.